Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And today I want to talk to you about beginnings. Sometimes beginnings are so exciting. I can remember when I started high school or when I started college. It felt so fresh and exciting and new. But as we get older, beginnings sometimes become more frightening because the road ahead is more uncertain. And another reason is that beginnings can be so difficult is because they come with endings. And it's so hard to experience the end of something and allow the opening for the beginning. And sometimes we don't want things to end because it's painful and we don't even want a new beginning. Sometimes relationships end when we don't want them to. We could lose a job. We could even retire. We could lose a friend. Someone we love could pass away. Something physical could happen to us that we're now restricted. Whatever it is, endings are often forced upon us. And it's hard to even imagine what a beginning could look like. But what we don't see is as things are ending, things are already beginning. And I know this is a very difficult topic. I myself have had endings thrust upon me, as well as many of my clients. I remember when my mother was in her 60s, she had this job that she loved. And it was becoming more and more difficult for her to work there every day. She was having conflict with her boss, and she was really tired. It was becoming a lot for her to go there every day, to commute. It was stressful. There was a lot of pressure, and she felt like she needed to leave her job. But she didn't know what she would do. And year after year, she would stay at that job because the beginning wasn't clear. And that's what happens to a lot of us. Sometimes we know the ending is here. But because we can't see the beginning, we resist. And eventually my mother, who cried and cried her last couple of months of work, she did leave her job because it became too much for her. But the beginning was already there. Her children were getting married. Grandkids were on the way. She spent more time with friends and family, but she couldn't see that was going to happen. And it took some time for her to create her new life. And if you asked her today, do you remember working? She's in her 80s now. So if you ask her today, do you remember that job you had? She would smile and say, yeah, it was a great job, but it was time to leave. And I'm really happy I left when I did. But at the time, she couldn't see it. So with my mother, it was a choice. But I also work with people who sometimes their husband or their wife will leave them, or somebody they love will pass away, or sometimes they get fired from a job. And it feels after that event happens that we have nothing, that our lives are empty, that there's no direction. And what do we do then? The ending is so difficult because it was thrust upon us. We did not see it coming. But the truth is sometimes when things end, we don't see it coming because we would have negotiated it away. And sometimes it's meant to be, and sometimes there's a better path for us. Or sometimes we just have to create a new path, whether it's better or worse, because we have no choice. So how can we face these endings and get ready for the beginnings? Because sometimes there's a lot of emptiness, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of hurt. And the first thing is we need to be so gentle and kind to ourselves. We have to recognize we are not the only people that have endings thrust upon us, that it happens to everybody. And we also have to remember that if we have breath, then we have hope. And I know I talk about maybe quite often, but this is a perfect time to try to have a maybe mindset. Because the truth is, if the future is uncertain, if your beginning is uncertain, that means that there are possibilities. Maybe some you can't imagine, and maybe some that you dream of. But because you don't know what's going to happen, it could be good. And maybe life will get better. Maybe this is for the best. Or maybe the life you had, you'll always love better. But because you're here, maybe there's something left to experience. And maybe there are more moments of joy. Maybe there are new things to learn. And maybe it's going to take a while. And sometimes we need to sit in pain and we sit in hurt. But if you believe in maybe over time, just allow that opening and new things will come into your life. But we need to allow it. Sometimes beginnings could take a year or 2 years, and sometimes things will just come into our lives. And sometimes we'll meet new people, new job opportunities will happen, things we cannot imagine at the end. And that's why maybe is so important, because it allows us to know, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I know maybe exists. Oh, then maybe there are possibilities and some that I might like. And I know when things happen, some people believe the best always happens for us. And quite honestly, I'm not sure if that's true. I don't know if the best always happens. But I believe when an ending happens, we need to stay open. And maybe it was for the best, or maybe we need to make the best of it. And that's so important because we're still here. And if we're still here, there are experiences still to have. Maybe the pain or the loss will lead us to wisdom, will lead us to new hobbies, will lead us to new people, new jobs. We have no idea, but uncertainty is our best friend because it means that life can change. So whatever your ending is, whether it's forced upon you or it's by choice, as the ending happens, the beginning is already there. We just can't see it. And if we're willing to stay open, fluid, and flexible as we look towards the unknown, we're going to find new things. But we have to be careful not to turn our back on the beginning, even if we're in pain and even if it feels impossible. Just know that life has maybe. And just know that all things change over time. When an ending happens, the most beautiful thing to realize is nothing's permanent. So even the ending will shift into a beginning, and then the beginning will shift into your new life. But we have to have resilience and patience and kindness and gentleness towards ourselves, and know that our life has purpose. And if we're still here, then there's more things to experience on this journey. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Every end has a beginning, and every beginning has an end. And that's the flow of life. But if we could just loosen our grasp on what will happen next, and know that life ebbs and flows, and just as whatever happened just ended, the same will happen for the beginning. You don't sometimes even see it coming. So as best you can, embrace what you don't know. Feel what you need to feel as things are passing. And try to stay open-hearted even though you might not have any answers and you might not have a direction for the beginning to come to you. If you have breath, you have hope. If you have hope, you have maybe. And just hang on to uncertainty. Start to embrace it. And start to know within the unknown are possibilities for your life always. Again, whether what happened to you is for the best or you need to make the best of it. We're all here for a reason and a purpose. And even though it might not be clear to you at this moment because you're experiencing an end, just remember that you're just in the flow of life. And the more you're willing to keep your heart open, even through the pain and the grief and the loss and the sadness, the more space there is for new beginnings, new opportunities, new jobs, new love, new friendships, because you never know, maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to read my book, The Gift of Maybe, it's available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and also leave a comment.